Good morning.
What's up, buddy?
Still is morning, at least here on the East Coast.
Oh, spring forward. We spring forward today.
Yeah, so we lost an hour. Or gained an hour. No, we lost an hour, which is silly that we even have to do that. But anyway, that's a topic for a discussion on another day. How are you?
I'm great, man. I get, I'm great. Life is it's amazing.
It is.
Are these conversations that we have prior to this are amazing in themselves, Sometimes they just shut you right up.
Yep.
Shut myself up sometimes too.
And we have to at times. I think it's important to just, because we were just talking about a little while ago, kind of quiet yourself and just sit back and observe the grand picture of what's going on.
This topic right here is very important. Every single topic that is in these books is very important. So it's somewhat, it's repetitive to say that, but there's a recognition. There's a built-in recognition here that that if you're really studying these things, you might want to take a deeper look into this right here,
Right.
Like the new group of world servers and what that means. And especially if we're reading this material and we're having these conversations, you might contemplate that maybe you're part of this group,
Right.
and allow, and just ask the question of your soul, I guess, and to see what all that means, because we're about to get into this right here, and we look for being a part of a group quite often throughout our day, in our life, right? Many of us looked for a group that we thought maybe we belonged to, whether it was a sports thing or a military thing or some sort of knitting club, or everybody's got their thing, right? Like, where are my people at? Well, you're never probably going to have that. You were never going to have an attachment, a magnetic attachment. And if you do have a magnetic attachment right now, it probably won't be around for very long to a group like that.
Right.
So we're probably picking up, I would assume we're loners in a way, who are dropping those magnetic attachments and are drawn magnetically to this.
Mm-hmm.
And if this is what you're drawn to, maybe this is where your people are,
Right.
For this go. So it might be something to delve into.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Because there could be plenty of people out there that are a part of this tribe and just don't realize it yet. But
and you got to question it,
Well, you got to question everything. But yeah, you have to question it. But like you said, if you're feeling like you're magnetically drawn to it, I guess don't resist it. You shouldn't resist it. But
yeah, it's the whole magnetic, the whole attraction thing is it's very interesting, because it's something that we can observe in our life,
Right.
And a couple of years ago, would have never thought I would say something like that, but now you can sense what you're drawn to.
Right.
And because you're aware of it now, we're paying attention to where you're being pulled around, and you're not being pulled around anymore so much, So wherever, you're going, we're aware of, and then
Right.
if this is where we're going, then this is good. Yeah, we just need to be aware of the other things that we're being drawn to that maybe aren't good, and get rid of those too. Those glamours and illusions. Right?
Yes.
Anyway, where are we at? Where are we at, man? I don't mean
So no, it's all
just
good.
talk about
I
it.
think it was good to get that out there, because that was a key point of our discussion before we started the show here. So we're on page 196 is where we left off on the PDF. And that equates to, so we left off at the statement towards the bottom half of 196. What should therefore be the work of the immediate present? However, I might read that paragraph before just to lead into it a little bit, since we kind of cut midstream. But that equates to the top of page 418 is where we read to in the blue book. But like I said, I'm going to read that prior paragraph to get us started. So that's actually midway through page 417 in the blue book. So with that, hopefully that didn't confuse folks. But anyway, without further ado, let's get started here. So one by one, here and there, they are being gathered out and are gathering to them those who are free from the limitations of past political, religious, and cultural theories. They, the members of the one group, are organizing these forward-looking souls into groups which are destined to bring in the new era of peace and of goodwill. These latter, who are being influenced by the group members, are as yet only a few thousand among the millions of men, and out of the 400 accepted disciples working in the world at this time, only about 156 are equipped by their thought activity to form part of this slowly forming group. These constitute the nucleus of what will be someday a dominant force. During the next 25 years, their influence will become potent enough to attract political attention, provided those of you who have seen the vision of a powerful subjective body of thinking souls can speak the needed words and outline those concepts which will hasten the work of integration and put the units in this group in touch with one another. Do your utmost to see that this is done, and make this the message and keynote of the work you all do wherever you are. So what should therefore be the work of the immediate present? Let me outline the program as far as I can. The first thing to be done is to strengthen the ties and establish firmly the link between yourselves and all those whom you recognize as possible working disciples in the new group. To do this, acquaint yourselves with the work of the leaders of the groups in the various countries of the world, such as Switzerland, the United States, Holland, Germany, and Great Britain. So I imagine there is some significance to those countries at the beginning of the turn of the 20th century when this book was written. From their reaction to the vision of this new age type of work, you can then make a temporary decision. Watch them at their work. Note the emphasis laid by them upon personalities. If personal ambition seems to govern their activities, if their position is one of a determination to work in the group of mystics because of its novelty, or because it gives them a certain standing, or because it intrigues their imagination, or gives them scope for gathering people around them, then proceed no further. But preserving silence, leave time and the law to correct their attitude. It's pretty interesting.
Tickling, if you're about getting your ears tickled or tickling other people's ears for your own personal benefit.
Right. Well, and it's interesting, it's these 5 countries mentioned. When was this book written again? In the
1934.
1934. So yeah, you thinking back to that time frame when these countries were discussed, there's I think some synergies there for what is being discussed here. But even now, I'm looking at Switzerland. Isn't that where the World Economic Forum was stood up?
There's a lot going on in those places. Yeah, man.
Right.
I mean,
So, but that brings it to the final stand here, where we kind of need to observe that and, determine, are they doing these things based on kind of personal ambition versus the true, I guess, the true work for the greater good. And I'm not sure that any of that has really been seen yet from any of these countries. So, including our own.
It's a yeah, no, it's and so
It's like you've said before, until we have that political candidate that comes and runs a race that's based on right human relations and not kind of personal subgroup agendas and things like that, it's
no,
we're not really going to get very far.
yeah,
but anyway,
so the interesting part about that and where we're at right now is we have to look at the fact that the fourth ray is coming into manifestation,
right,
and that's harmony through conflict. Right, but it's way more mental as well. This is not physical plane stuff. So it would be seen by the more use of harsh words as opposed to a physical expression, like an actual violent or anything, like a physical type of a thing. But it would allude to that because that's on the table. So if you look at somebody like Donald Trump, you may not like what his overall, we have to get past the judgment of what we're looking at and look at the deeper side of it. Because he really was probably more about the good, changing things for the better, right? And he wasn't about war, but he was about threats, and he was very harsh verbally with people, right? And he's like famous for his negotiating. Right. And he always got his way, and he was getting his way for the United States too. And, not just, so this is, it's a very interesting thing when somebody's winning all the time. Why would you, I saw somebody say this, and it's like, hey, if the coach is winning Super Bowls, then you don't really mess with that. And you don't turn to the coach who's been, at it for 43 years and doesn't have a win. But you got this other dude who's got these wins coming one after another, right? So who are we to judge that, type of event? Now I'm just looking at the United States, and so my point, I guess, in this is, what are our preconceived notions about what this group looks like? Because if you look at your past and you look at, let's say, mine, people would probably be pretty judgmental, right? Like coming from if you're judging us on how you knew us from the past, which is the only way people can judge you because they don't know you now, right? So do we know what we're looking at in this group? So I think we're seeing a very diverse group. DK says all the world leaders are essentially, and not just essentially, but necessarily are suffering saviors, and they're playing a role on the physical plane like as we are. So what is this group really consist of and what does it really look like is a very interesting thing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
just kind of looking at it from a different perspective there. It's a tough thing, man.
Well, I
So
think even, oh, go ahead, finish your thought.
no, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so yeah, you mentioned the harmony through conflict and the entering the fourth ray. So I think it's obvious we're already kind of seeing a lot of that now. You mentioned it with Donald Trump and kind of, how he turns a lot of people off from him because of his abusive language. But we could even look at it through my example too. Davos, Switzerland, where the WEF was formed, and they have this agenda of, a kind of a world economy type of agenda that, the whole concept of you'll own nothing and you'll be happy about it type of deal. But that's representing, I think, harmony through conflict too, because it's starting to wake people up to what's actually going on out there, and people are seeing through that veil, and it's kind of pissing a lot of people off that they're pushing forward with this type of agenda. So it's waking up more of the masses to have that conflict, through which at some point harmony will come, because it's all going to have to be worked out, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, man.
Yeah.
And
we have here in the United States, we're doing similar things to push one government type of agendas that people just don't want to buy it. They can't. You're really not buying into it. So there's a lot of conflict that's being created.
Not only is the new group of world servers not buying into it, the new group of world servers are the people who are not magnetically attached to it, just like we were talking about earlier.
Right.
So if you're studying this and we're along on the path and you've listened to some of these, Raja Yoga meditations and such, right? The soul owns nothing, not an atom. We're not attached to anything whatsoever. And you may own a dang 300-foot yacht. That has by no means does that mean you are attached to it.
Right.
So these guys talking about you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Well, I already perceive I don't own anything. This is my environment. This is the environment that we are working in, but I don't feel that I own any of it at this point. So yeah, I already don't own anything. So what are you going to take?
Right.
All you can do is make things more or less efficient, essentially.
Right.
It's fun. It's kind of funny, but yeah, no, this harmony, how it's going to play out is
it's a very interesting thing.
We're seeing some of it now with the banks.
Oh, absolutely.
There's this huge patriot movement. We know that we've been heavily conditioned over the years, right? And we know it's been basically through programming. Well, at the same time, there's been this general programming. There's this other propaganda machine, essentially trying to uncondition people.
Right.
So, and then you have us who are like probably walking the razor's edge path through the middle of this, but observing both sides of the events.
Right.
And not really attached to any. We're really just about the betterment of humanity, getting people to that point. So yeah, no, man, this is intense. I anticipate things are gonna, we anticipate things are probably going to be pretty rough. And listen, harmony through conflict. What else do you need to hear? You got to have the conflict. You got to have the antithesis to get to the synthesis.
Right.
It's all that.
You need Shiva to destroy it all before it can get
How
better.
to do it.
And then they just wrap that quick up. So yes, going back to that harmony through conflict, it's best to just be the
Well-
observer, preserve that silence, and leave time and law to correct the attitudes of all that's going on. So
Well, you got the Christians out
Excuse me.
there all over the place talking about the appearance of the Antichrist,
mhm,
right? Well, that is the Shiva aspect, right?
right.
So how do we, how you gonna judge that as negative when it's a divine function?
Right.
It's the will. This is the will. This has to have these things. You have to have that. The Antichrist is still divine. It is a divine operation of the whole, you know.
Well, and it's a part of the process of the revelation too. So
Yeah,
right.
you need this. Yeah, so it's interesting that we got, you know, what that's a huge leap just to get to that point, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
For,
Well, I mean, even
know,
looking back at the crucifixion of Christ.
yeah, you weren't getting there without Judas.
Exactly. As horrible as that was, but it was an absolute necessary part of what transcended there in order for Christ to move through that transfiguration.
Yeah,
So,
you have to have the polarities.
yep.
So,
All right. One paragraph in, that was a good discussion. All right. Secondly, be receptive towards those who seek you out and seem to vibrate to the same note. When I say you, I mean the group to which you are all subjectively belong, to which you all subjectively belong. They will come if you work with decision and sound out the note of unity so clearly that they are in no doubt as to your motives and your disinterested activity. Some of the 156 who form the present nucleus will be known to you and will work in unison with you, though maybe not in your peculiar field of action. The picture to be held before your eyes is that of a vast network of groups, working along the many possible lines, but having at their heart or behind them, working silently and persistently influencing through soul contact, one or more members of the new slowly emerging group. These focal points through which the hierarchy is now seeking to work stand together telepathically and exoterically. They must work in the completest understanding, preserving always an attitude of non-interference and leaving each worker free to teach his own group as he sees fit. The terms used, the methods employed, the types reached, the truths taught, the discipline of life demonstrated concern no one but the working disciple. The members of this group of New Age workers will, however, possess certain general characteristics. They will impose no enforced dogmas of any kind and will lay no emphasis upon any doctrine or authorities. They are not interested in having any personal authority, nor do they rest back upon traditional authority, whether religious, scientific, cultural, or any other form of imposed truth. Modes of approach to reality will be recognized, and each will be free to choose his own. No disciple will be imposed by these workers upon those who seek to cooperate with them. The ideas of any one person or leader as to how the units in his particular sphere of activity should live and work, should meditate and eat, will be regarded as of no special value. The members of this new group work esoterically with souls and deal not with the details of the personality lives of the aspirants they seek to inspire. This is a basic rule and will serve to eliminate many worthy aspirants from this group of world servers now in process of forming. The tendency to impose one's own point of view indicates a lack of understanding, and it will rule many out.
You know, the nice part about this, man, it's really that razor's edge path, right?
Yeah,
It's the middle way. You don't even sway off of it for at all. We could talk about these things all day long, but we're not trying to sway anybody in any direction.
right.
It's good to hear perspective, though. It's good for us to talk about these, pretty much all of them. I mean, these conversations are fantastic.
Yeah,
But nevertheless, we're walking the middle way. We, do what you like. That's
right.
that's the whole nice part about this is freedom. You have freedom.
Agreed.
Nobody's going to hassle anybody about what they think or believe or anything else. It's always going to, it will never be from us. Right.
Right.
If there's ever any of that going on, it's going to be from projected.
Well, I like how it touches here to not impose one's own point of view. Or if you do so, it indicates a lack of understanding or ruling out. So, it's good to have those conversations from your point of view, but not to impose them onto those who you're trying to bring up. So
No, the whole point is don't judge.
Absolutely not.
We
are
can't
not
judge.
here to do that.
We're not here to, yeah, we don't know what's necessarily right, wrong, true, good.
Right.
We don't know. It's very hard to tell now more than ever. DK talks about it in a number of places too, man. Like, this is a very difficult place to live right now. This is not the way aspirants used to live in the days when there was, they could find and go seek out relative peace.
Right.
Right. And they could live in a real harmony, with their environment and such. That is not really the case right now in this world. We are living in the midst of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
All of us, for the most part, right? I mean, it might be now we're doing this from a observer type of perspective, and we're walking the middle way. So, but nevertheless, the world is in the midst of chaos.
Oh, it sure is.
Which is good.
Right. Well, harmony through conflict. Again, the young and promising aspirants must be sought out and carefully inculcated with the trend of the new ideals. They must be taught to look for the divine and the good in all, both people and circumstances, as we just discussed. Breadth of vision must be developed, and that wide horizon pointed out, which will enable the aspirant to live through this transitional period which is now with us, so that when they reach middle life, they will stand as pillars of strength in the new world. Do not narrow them down to the ancient disciplines, and teach them not to lay emphasis upon diet, celibacy, times and season, and so distract their attention away from the newer and sacred art of being and the wonder of living as a soul.
And Carla has said that many times. Just what are you doing? You're learning to be. You're learning to just be. Learn to be. Practice being.
Right. Understanding that you're probably going to make some mistakes along the way, but that's part of the growth and learning process too, right?
Because, we're pretty far advanced if you look at, the fact that we've been doing this for what, 20 million years or whatever. You go, Lemurian, we did that, Atlantis happened, this is the area, this is the fifth root race at this point. A lot of these things that we're talking about here, that he's talking about, these are really below the threshold, and we don't need to be identified with those things any longer. We can move on from it.
Right.
And there's a shift in spirituality, and I'm talking from the books, what DK says. There's a shift from the East, the teachings of the East and the way the East has been the focal point of spirituality, to now the West is the focal point of spirituality, and it's the more advanced spirituality.
Right.
This is the
Well, this
more advanced, what we're talking about, essentially.
it's the sacred art of being.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to point that out because, it essentially says here, as you just emphasized, that, we're not here to say, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that. It's you need to be, but right, not having that building it into yourself and operating from that higher mental level, and kind of dissolving away the desire or need to even be attracted to those types of things.
Well,
it works out on your own.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that in Lemuria, the third root race was the third initiation was the highest initiation. In Atlantis, the fourth initiation is the highest they could reach. Well, we're in the fifth, and the fifth initiation is the highest initiation to attain to, right? And with that being said, you're not getting to those initiations, bro, without having let everything go.
Right.
Essentially, you got to let all of this go. Drop it. It's dead weight now. Now, do what you want, right? Do what you want, but read this too, so you have we have a clue, right? And I assume that those drawn to this will be drawn to this when it's time, right?
Right.
That's probably that simple. You don't find this material by accident.
No. And as you dive deeper and kind of progress more along the way, these things do have a tendency to really disengage from you magnetically. So, just saying, it becomes more of a natural type of process.
Yes, sir.
Versus being dictated to not do it. You know what I mean? So anyway, more good conversation, and what we're four so progressing now. Okay, it's sacred art of being and the wonder of living as a soul. Forget not that when a man is living as a soul, and his entire personality is therefore subordinated to that soul, unselfish purpose, purity of life, conformity to law, and the setting of a true example of spiritual living will normally and automatically follow. That's what we just talked about. Food, for instance, is frequently a matter of climactic expediency and of taste, and that food is desirable which keeps the physical body in condition to serve the race. Again, a divine son of God can surely function as freely and as effectively when in the married state as in the celibate. He will, however, brook no prostitution of the powers of the body to the grosser satisfactions, nor will he offend against established customs, nor lower the standards which the world has set for its highest and best. The issues have been confused, and the emphasis has been too often laid upon the physical acts and not upon the life of the actor. When the attention is fixed upon the soul, the physical plane life will be rightly handled. It will be realized that there is a greater hindrance to the growth of the man and spiritual being through a critical attitude or a state of self-satisfaction than by the eating of meat. Two rules of life activity must be taught the young aspirant. He must be taught to focus on constructive activity and to refrain from pulling down the old order of living. He must be set to building for the future and to thinking along the new lines. He must be warned not to waste time in attacking that which is undesirable, but must instead bend all his energies to creating the new temple of the Lord through which the glory may be manifested. In this way, public attention will gradually be focused upon the new and beautiful, and the old established creations will fall into decay for lack of attention and so disappear. He must be taught also that partisanship is in no way a sign of spiritual development. He will not therefore use the words anti this or pro that. Such terms automatically breed hatred and attack, an effort to resist change. They put the user on the defensive. Every class of human beings is a group of brothers. Catholics, Jews, Gentiles, Occidentals, and Orientals are all the sons of God. As regard the future of this world group of which we have been speaking, much depends upon two things. First, it is necessary for all those isolated disciples working in every country in the world to become aware of one another and then to enter into telepathic rapport. This may seem to you to be a wonderful but impractical vision. I assure you that this is not so. The work of establishing this rapport may indeed be slow, but it is an inevitable effect of the growing sensitivity of all the souls who are working in the field of the world. The first indication of it is that instinctive recognition of those who constitute part of this group when they meet and contact each other in the ways of world intercourse. There comes to them an immediate flashing forth of the light, an instantaneous electrical interplay, a sudden sensing of a similarity of vision and of objective, or a vital opportunity to aid in and to cooperate with each other in the work in which it is realized that all are interested. Working disciples everywhere, when they meet each other, will know at once that their work is identical and will advise with each other as to where cooperation and supplementary endeavor may be possible. In about 30 years, the interrelation between the units in this group, scattered as they may be all over the world, will be so close that daily they will meet each other at a set time and in the secret place. This only becomes possible when the triplicity of soul, mind, brain are all aligned in the individual and when each aspect of it can be simultaneously in touch with members of the group. At present, all the souls of the group of mystics do work in unison. A number have succeeded in bringing the soul and the mind also into a close and established relation. But as yet, the lowest aspect of this aligned and linking triangle, the physical brain, remains totally unresponsive to the waves of force emanating from the higher aspects of the disciples engaged, thus in laying the foundations of the New Age civilization.
Yeah, a study of telepathy is on the books to be done pretty quickly, because it's not what we think. I don't believe, right? I'm not going to talk about it yet because I'm not educated, but I want to say it's the receiving of thought forms, more or less, right? It's not, I imagine it could be specific words, like a specific thing, but it can also be a larger ideal, right? So
right.
That's something to, because what I'm saying by that is you may be, and it said that we're all much more telepathic than we understand and believe. So it would be interesting to know how you're receiving these things now already, unconsciously.
Right.
So, yeah, my bad.
All right. No worries. It is therefore, is that where I left off? It is therefore largely a matter of perfecting the mechanism of the brain so that it can rightly register and correctly transmit the soul impressions and the group purposes and recognitions. This involves 1, the awakening into conscious activity of the center between the eyebrows, called by the Oriental student the Ajna center. 2, the subordinating then of the activity of this center to that of the head center, so that the two vibrate in unison. This produces the establishment of 3 things. A, the direct conscious alignment between soul, mind, and brain. B, the appearance of a magnetic field which embraces both the head centers and so definitely affects the pineal gland and the pituitary body. And C, the recognition of this field of dual activity in two ways, as of a light in the head, an interior radiant sun, or as a dynamic center of energy through which the will or purpose aspect of the soul can make itself felt. 3, the development of a facility which will enable a man to A, use the mind in any direction he chooses, turning it externally towards the world of phenomena or internally towards the world of spiritual being.
Yeah, okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
Good
B,
way to explain that, yeah.
B, produce consciously and at will a corresponding responsiveness in the physical brain so that it can register accurately any information coming from the physical world and the emotional or astral world. And C, discriminate intelligently between all these spheres of sentient activity. This will all be eventually covered by a new psychological approach, which will emerge out of the old and be a blend of the mechanical schools, the introspective and the more purely oriental position, plus the conclusions of 2 new schools, which will shortly arise, but which are as yet too small to warrant a name. They are in the embryo stage. One school will deal with the energy aspects of the individual and his responsiveness to the energy of the universe in which he is immersed. The other will consider man as a unit of electricity. Both will be quite one-sided, but the contributions of the various schools will someday be unified into one synthetic presentation. The second requirement, which will establish relation between the working disciples in this group, is the capacity to preserve a constant and sequential recollection of both the inner and the outer life.
Hey, just
Yeah.
real quick, man.
Yes, sir.
On that previous paragraph,
Mhm.
one school will deal with the energy aspects of the individual and his responsiveness to the energy of the universe in which he is immersed. The other will consider man as a unit of electricity. Both will be quite one-sided, but the contribution of the various schools will someday be unified into one synthetic presentation. I want to say we're definitely seeing that.
The blending, the synthetic presentation of the two. Now,
Yeah, we're seeing this.
so I would
In a
agree.
more, yeah, in a further evolved way than when this was written.
Right.
You've seen this is really I don't want to say an East and a West thing, but this is a science thing.
I was going to say,
spiritual versus science thing.
So see, we're being telepathic with each other right now, because I was just going to say, yeah, the synthesis of these two is now being proven scientifically. We're seeing that. So
yeah, the unit of electricity side of it is more of the science side.
Right.
And the energy aspects and his responsiveness of the universe, that's more of the spiritual side. But these things are being, along with philosophy, are being synthesized, and we're seeing that. You can see that in, the Theosophical Society. And that's just one expression. I mean, many of these things. But yes, and exoterically.
Right. The second requirement, which will establish relation between the working disciples in this group, is the capacity to preserve a constant and sequential recollection of both the inner and the outer life. We call it continuity of consciousness. And by this, we mean the power to be fully aware of all happenings in all spheres and departments of man's being during the entire 24 hours of the day. As yet, this is far from being the case. There is no real,
You and I know that can I make a joke?
do it.
The city never sleeps at night. Was that Imagine Dragons? It's time to begin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this has been said by many people in various places about if you listen to music, you would hear that quite a bit. And not to say that those people are the ones who are experiencing that, right?
Right.
Just that it's been yeah. Anyway, it's time. The city never sleeps.
It has a more profound meaning than the clubs are staying open late.
Right. Yeah. Just there. Thank you for finishing my joke, sir.
Again, there's a telepathy in action.
Yeah, that's good.
There is no real. This is yet from being the case. There is no real awareness of existence during the hours of sleep. The dream life as related is as full of illusion as any of the more definitely lower psychic experiences. The slowly growing interest in dreams from the standpoint of psychology and the investigation of their probable source are the first weak attempts towards establishing the awareness on a really scientific basis. There is as yet no conscious registering of mental activity during such times, for instance, as when the emotional body holds the center of the stage. With what is the mind occupied during a long period of emotional upset? It has, we know, its own life and its laws. Again, what are the activities of the soul when the development of consciousness will have reached the stage where there will be a sentient reaction in all the departments of man's nature, and all of it recorded by the brain? Already men are aware both of physical plane activity and emotional aliveness simultaneously. That is for the majority a common and ordinary condition, where two activities can be registered at once. Why not 3 or even 4? Such is the future ahead for the race, and the disciples actively employed will be the first to express and demonstrate this extended consciousness.
And if I may add to this, something that I think Carla might point out is that as you're listening to somebody talk, or you're watching actions on the physical plane, you consciously register. At a certain point, you're registering the meaning of it, right, on the mental plane. And I suppose an initiate is registering intuitively registering the reason that it's occurring, and potentially the significance of it occurring. So a higher level initiate might be able to see the significance of the event and the words, all of the phenomena, the reason that event significance is happening, and the meaning of the significance of the event are happening, and the implications of it all at the same time, because they're not necessarily operating in time. It's just all being seen at the same time. So there's this registering of all of this. So what he's saying is, why not? No, and I assume that is in fact how that goes. Not to say that that's how I see things, but that's how I see that a higher being might see it, right now,
Right.
based on reading.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's that omniscience there,
Hmm.
right?
Yes, sir. Okay, where was I? Thus telepathic interplay. Okay, I think that's where I left off. Yes, thus telepathic interplay and extended sentiency must be developed and are closely interlinked with each other. I have therefore pointed out to the let me start that over. I have therefore pointed out the immediate future development of the individual disciple. What lies ahead in the immediate future for the group? First of all, preliminary period of emergence into the public consciousness and thus of making its presence felt. This will be done through the steady communication of the new ideals and the constant emphasis laid upon the essential oneness of all humanity. It will be the result of the uniformity and inclusiveness of the note sounded by one here and another there. During this stage, there must be no hurried work and no precipitate action of any kind. The growth of the group and of its ideas will be slow and sure. The group exists already. It has not to be formed and organized, and there is therefore for none of you the assuming of any sense of responsibility, nor the organizing of any activity desired to lure these disciples, who have chosen thus to work subjectively, into publicity. Such are not the methods approved by the elder brothers of the race, nor is it the way that they themselves work. So the groups are already formed.
Yeah, you want to hear something interesting that I read,
Yeah.
I think yesterday? Not only are these groups already formed, but the previous lives leading up to these groups being formed were lives of training for these events.
Hmm.
Because the life of a disciple didn't just happen, you know. It's not like, oh, here now this is the thing, right? Now this is in the works for who knows how many lives. If you listen to Michael Robbins talk about that, you know, it could be thousands of lives, and you know, and if you look at it fractionally, by let's say you've been working at this for, you know, 30 lives, in the scope of 3,000, what is that? It's a tenth of a, you know, it's 100% or something.
Right.
And maybe that's, you know, and if you're really just coming into this, then, you know, maybe that's how many more we do, or so he talks about it in such intriguing ways. But yeah, so this has been in the works. So you've been working towards this. Certainly. We're just really to the point where this is the emergence of that.
Yeah, and I think it's probably important just to remind too that when we're talking about group here, we're really talking about like a group of souls, right? It's not necessarily it's right. It's not necessarily a group of physical people getting together and working on this stuff. There's that kind of telepathic contact happening where all these souls are kind of working on the same agenda, so to speak. So kind of throw a little bit of a less stressor factor out there for folks, because it's not like, oh, I'm not involved with a group of people physically, so I'm not, this isn't working. It's not necessarily
like he
always
says
that.
Though,
yeah,
you know, if you do see another group working,
yeah,
there's no reason that you can't make contact with them.
Absolutely.
And say, hey, well, I want to join your Sunday videos because
right.
I want to be involved. Okay.
Right.
You know, by no means are we exclusive.
But that will come with that magnetic, I guess, that magnetic energetic attraction to it. Right.
Well, yeah, and it should be one of those things where we should all be linking, probably, you know, maybe link, I don't say probably, maybe potentially be linking each other's work to, you know, to pass around or spreading the word on each other's stuff or something, you know,
Right.
like kind of like, you know, Chamber of Commerce or something, you know, I don't know. You know, I don't know, man. I got nothing. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, we're all seem,
Well, it did mention a couple paragraphs ago about
yeah,
working into the publicity of it. The group will do that,
yeah, the
but it's
subjectively into publicity.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah, it's emerging on the physical. So this is the expression of the higher, right? Like
all
we're
right.
witnessing the reflection.
Well, that's the paragraph I just
Um,
read. The public consciousness. Yeah. But no hurried work, no precipitate action of any kind. The growth of the group and of its ideas will be slow and sure. The group already exists. It has not to be formed and organized, and there is therefore for none of you the assuming of any sense of responsibility nor the organizing of any activity desired to lure these disciples who have chosen thus to work subjectively into publicity. So basically read that whole paragraph over again, but it's a lot packed in there. I like this. We're having a lot of good.
It's like everything is flipped upside down,
Yeah.
like purposefully, and then like we're coming along and then flipping each puzzle piece back over so you can be revealed or something. You know, it's an amazing thing, man. This illusion, this Maya, is just amazing.
Mhm.
Right now, I mean, when you think into it, things are so out of whack on it. It's just so incredibly flipped upside down on the, you know, on the physical plane right now, man.
Mm.
It's like the reverse reflection of what its intention is.
Right.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Huh?
At the same time, everybody's getting lost and carried away in the astral plane, right? So, anywho, know each of you for yourselves whether you stand for the new position, the new attitude towards work, and for the subjective method. Decide once and for all whether you prefer to work in the old, exoteric, ambitious manner, building and vitalizing an organization, and so producing all the mechanism which goes with such a method of work. Remember that such groups are still greatly needed and are useful. It is not yet the new age, and the little ones must not be left exposed to the new forces, nor turned out bereft of the nursery to which they naturally belong. Should the new mode,
I'd
got
like
something?
to,
Go
yeah,
for it.
well, I'd like to hear that again, actually.
Yeah, let me read it again. So know each of you for yourselves whether you stand for the new position, the new attitude towards work, and for the subjective method. Decide once and for all whether you prefer to work in the old, exoteric, ambitious manner, building and vitalizing an organization, and so producing all the mechanism which goes with such a method of work. Remember that such groups are still greatly needed and are useful. It is not yet the new age, and the little ones must not be left exposed to the new forces, nor turned out bereft of the nursery to which they naturally belong. So I think that's talking about exoteric, ambitious manner of building and vitalizing an organization. So that's actually standing a physical group up, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, no doubt. But my question is, it is not yet the new age, and the little ones must not be left exposed to the new forces. Okay. So they'll be buffered, nor turned out bereft.
Of the nursery to which they
Okay, so
naturally belong. So I think, and I could be wrong with this, but I think what that's saying, so the lead into it is talking about choose whether or not you think you need to be part of an exoteric group of an actual physical formed organization, group of people working on a similar agenda. We could maybe the Theosophy Society or something like that, right? It's a physical organization that is thinking and pushing along the same agenda. Still very necessary, because what that can do is provide an avenue for the little ones who might just be starting to awaken, to pull them in and kind of help them move along the path, as opposed to just leaving them exposed out there by themselves to these new forces.
Yeah, see, yeah, that's
I think I could be wrong with that.
no, you're right. That's how that reads. That's certainly how that reads. There's also this, just because you're not involved with the exoteric groups, by no means you're not doing the work.
Right, exactly.
By no
Exactly.
means at all, in any way.
Right.
So, we don't have to stress on that at all. And we also don't have to stress on trying to be super ambitious and build giant exoteric groups.
Exactly.
And with this, the way we're communicating now and the internet, the way that it is, there's so much opportunity to pull people in to ideas and let it be discerned through themselves, right? Like we're in good shape there. I just needed to read that a couple of times myself, because I'm slow to pick up on what was being said there.
Well, you may be slow, but you're still very wise. So
thank you.
All right. Should the new mode of work appeal to you, see to it that the personality is subordinated, that the life of meditation is kept paramount in importance, that sensitivity to the subjective realm is cultivated, and any necessary outer activities are handled from within outwards. Avoid a purely mystical introspection or its opposite extreme, and an overemphasized organizing spirit, remembering that a life of truly occult meditation must inevitably produce outer happenings, but that these objective results are produced by an inner growth and not by an outer activity. An ancient scripture teaches this truth in the following terms. When the sun progresses into the mansion of the serving man, the way of life takes the place of the way of work. Then the tree of life grows until its branches shelter all the sons of men. The building of the temple and the carrying of the stones cease. The growing trees are seen, the buildings disappear. Let the sun pass into its appointed place, and in this day and generation attend ye to the roots of growth.
Carry the water pot out into the desert and let the desert turn green. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Little groups will spring up here and there, for whose members respond to the new note and whose growth into the world group will be watched over by one or more working disciples. But these latter do not organize the groups. They grow as a man in this place and another in that place awakens to the new vision or comes into incarnation in order to take his place in the work and bring in the new era. These groups will demonstrate no sense of separateness. They will be unaware of personal or of group ambition. They will recognize their unity with all that exists and will stand before the world as examples of pure living, constructive building, creative activities subordinated to the general purpose, beauty, and inclusiveness. Perhaps in the early stages of integration, the words friendliness and cooperativeness best describe them. They are not interested in dogmas or doctrines and have no shibboleths. Their outstanding characteristic will lie in individual and group freedom from a critical spirit. This non-criticism will not grow out of an inability to see error or failure to measure up to an idea. Falsity, impurity, and weakness will be recognized for what they are, but when noted, will only serve to evoke a loving helpfulness. Little by little, these groups will come to know each other and to meet with one another at set times and places. They will come to these mutual conferences with no desire to impress one another and with no thought of relative numerical strength. They will demonstrate no ambition to increase their ranks. How should they, when they know themselves all to be members of the one world group? They have no teaching to give of a doctrinal nature and will not seek to demonstrate learning. They will meet solely to discuss modes of world helpfulness, the formation of a platform so universal and composed of such basic truths that it can be presented under all the varying methods and utilize the many terminologies. They will endeavor to employ each other's terms and to familiarize themselves with each other's approach to reality and symbology. Little by little, also the special contribution and note of each group will be recognized, and where a need exists for just that special approach and the particular note or method of interpretation in any part of the world, there will be an immediate and united impulse to facilitate the work that that special group could do in that place. These groups, with the one subjective group of conscious living souls behind them, will be too busy with world service and interests to waste time on trifling non-essentials. They will not have the time to play around with group names and insignia and badges and the technicalities of fraternities when they meet together. World needs, world opportunities, and the rapid development of the consciousness of mankind and the initiation of humanity into the spiritual realities will so engross their attention that they will have no interest in purely physical plane arrangements, nor in laying the emphasis upon their own personal growth. They will be well aware that response to world need and service and the life of focused immediate meditation will promote their growth. Their eyes are not upon themselves, upon their own good characters, or upon their individual accomplishments. Later, as a result of their telepathic relationship and their unified conferences, there may emerge certain esoteric groups and schools for development in order more rapidly to equip them for world service. In these schools, modes of meditation, the intensification of vibration and the laws of the universe will be taught, and the right use of color and of sound. But all will be subordinated to the idea of service and the uplift of humanity. Also, the schools referred to in Letters on Occult Meditation will gradually come into being. But what use is it for me to forecast the future in more explicit terms and hold out a picture of an intriguing quality when at the present time the integration of the group of world mystics and its close welding is not an accomplished fact? World unity, brotherhood in its true sense, the growth of telepathic interplay, the elimination of the non-essentials which serve to separate the thoughts of men and bring about separateness on the physical plane, and the laying of a true emphasis upon the fundamentals of the ageless wisdom, the manifestation of a true understanding, the bringing about of at one-ment with the soul, the recognition of those who belong to the group of world saviors. This is the immediate work to be done, and this must engross your attention. This and this alone warrants the expenditure of all that any of you have to give: love and life, time and money. This and this alone justifies your existence and calls forth from all of you who respond to the vision that utter self-sacrifice, which is so rare and so far-reaching in its effects. The casting of all that one has at the feet of the Lord of life in order that the work of world salvage may go forward. The elimination out of one's life of all that can possibly hinder. The giving of all that one has until it hurts to give. The ruling of one's life on the basis of surrender, asking oneself all the time, what can I relinquish in order that I may help more adequately? That and more than that lies ahead, of all of you who hear the call and respond to the need and opportunity. Let me tell you this. This group, now in process of becoming, will in time develop its own yoga and school of training, which will gradually supersede that of the Raja Yoga and Bhakti Yoga schools. The method of training will only be given to those who have trained the mind and learned to control the emotions. Hence the key to what is now going on. The mode of training will be no easy shortcut to the goal. Only the intelligent can attain it, and only coordinated personalities will be eligible to the teaching. The keynote of the new yoga will be synthesis. Its objective will be conscious development of the intuitive faculty. This development will fall into two categories. First, the development of the intuition and of the true spiritual perception. And secondly, the trained utilization of the mind as an interpreting agent.
That's the in the beginning of glamour, this technique of attaining to intuition is discussed actually. It's very much worth reading. It's not a big section. Just to kind of go along with this teaching here, but it's I want to say as you read it, you can sense the truth in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see how it's done. And it involves basically punching through the planes and raising your consciousness higher. And you have to read it. It's really something. But also, I forget what I was going to say about what we had just gone through. It's beautiful, man. What can you say? What do you got? What are your thoughts on all this? This is a big deal. I mean,
well, it's interesting to.
There's a whole group of people doing this.
Right.
A whole bunch of people that are learning and going through the same kind of processes, like the same growth to get to the place where you just give yourself away. This is kind of a North Node thing, if you in a strange sense, in a
Right.
higher way, to get to this point.
Well, it's just an interesting concept with this developing of a specific yoga, or a new yoga rather.
Well, it's time.
That will supersede Raja Yoga and Bhakti Yoga schools.
Raja is yoga of the mind, right?
Right.
Well, so if you look at it like this,
this is going to be yoga of synthesis.
Yeah, of the intuition.
Yeah.
Of gaining intuition, because essentially Bhakti Yoga is very astral. I mean, that's astral plane. So or sixth ray. Raja Yoga is mental plane, the mind.
Right.
Fifth ray. Now we're moving into the fourth. So it will be, and the Buddhic plane is represented. It's intuitional plane.
Right. Intuition. Yeah.
So now it'll be the yoga of intuition. But also, I think he's about to talk about Agni Yoga here in the next paragraph. So it'd be interesting to see. No book has yet made its appearance which gives in any form whatsoever the yoga of synthesis, like you're saying.
Yeah. In the book Agni Yoga.
And the fourth ray being the synthesizing ray of the seven, right?
Right. Yeah, let's cover this next paragraph. In the book Agni Yoga, some of the teachings to be given has filtered through, but only from the angle of the will aspect. No book has as yet made its appearance, which gives in any form whatsoever the yoga of synthesis, which you just said. We have had Bhakti Yoga, or union through devotion. Raja Yoga is now receiving emphasis, which is union through the mind, as we just discussed. It sounds like a redundancy to speak of union through synthesis, but it is not so. It is union through identification with the whole, not union through realization or through vision. Mark well this distinction, for it holds the secret of the next step for the personalities of the race. The Bhagavad Gita gives us primarily the key to the yoga of devotion. Patanjali teaches us the yoga of the mind. The gospel story, we have the portrayal of realization, but the key or the secret of identification is still withheld. It lies in the custody of a few in this integrating group of mystics and knowers, and will be brought out into manifestation in the furnace of their individual experience, and thus given to the world. But the time is not yet. The group must grow in strength, in knowledge, and in intuitive perception. You ask me, what keeps a man from becoming a member of such a group? I tell you with emphasis that 4 things only keep a man from affiliation. First, an uncoordinated personality. This involves necessarily an untrained mind and a feeble intellect. Second, a sense of separateness, of distinction, and of being set apart or different from one's fellow men. Third, the possession of a creed. No matter how good a formula of beliefs it may be, it inevitably produces exclusiveness. It bars some out. And fourth, pride and ambition. So those are four things that can keep a man from affiliation with the group of New World servers. And I know we've discussed some of that.
Yeah.
Some of our previous conversations and how important
But that's deeper, but this is deeper.
Yeah.
He goes deeper than what we've discussed for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But all of those things, the uncoordinated personality becomes coordinated, right?
Right.
The mind becomes illumined, right? The sense of separateness becomes, it's transformed into, of unity. The possessions of creed that drops off and is magnetically removed at some point as well, that attachment.
Right.
And then pride and ambition, well, that falls by the wayside with becoming more humble as we become more humble. So I want to say, he's going to say it here. So I ask him, how shall one qualify? The rules are simple and in 3 number. You can just first learn to practice harmlessness. So yeah, he's about to tell us how to basically, get rid of that as well there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how shall one qualify? The rules are simple, 3 in number. First, learn to practice harmlessness, then desire nothing for the separated self, and thirdly, look for the sign of divinity in all. 3 simple rules, but very hard to accomplish.
Easy. These books take easier said than
done. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it's because so much of this is conditioned and ingrained in our heads from the day that we're born into this incarnation and on this earth, right? Like all the sense of accomplishment, and I mean, there's a very big equity that seems to be aligned with personal ambition and success. And that's kind of how, or at least I know we've been
Well,
conditioned
you know,
growing
in
up.
a way, man, yeah, that's a tough thing because, you know, we lack faith, right? We're
Mhm.
lacking faith insofar as we have not yet trusted, we're not trusting our soul or our Father in heaven as much at this point as we should, because we should be getting pretty close to the point where we're recognizing that things will be handled on the physical plane for you will
Mhm.
have what you need. But then when you get to this part, then desire nothing for the separated self, right? Imagine looking out at the world and never considering yourself in it, and always looking towards what others need, or looking, just observing.
Mhm.
That's a very hard thing, man. That's a very strange thing too, in a sense. Desire nothing for the separated self. It's like, well, what do you do all day? Well, you're desiring something, probably, right?
Right.
Something. I mean, desire nothing. So what are we holding on to? And then harmlessness, that doesn't mean to be weak either. You know,
Right.
people shouldn't mistake in those things. You know, we shouldn't have any idea of what this actually looks like either. Because, like we said, right, somebody who's very successful out in the world, maybe they could have everything, dude. The riches of the kingdom could be handed to them, but not until you desire nothing. So
Right.
we're still judging. So we need to kind of probably, again,
Mm.
always be looking at our judgment and whether or not we're judging. Because I think that's a big problem that we have, generally speaking. Well, what does this look like? Desire nothing for the separated self. There's so much faith in that. It's a leap of, it is the leap. You know, looking for the sign of divinity in all. I think that comes for some probably pretty easy. You know, I I think that is something that you know, somebody astral or somebody who's done other practices, that's probably pretty well ingrained.
Mhm.
All of the practices, all of the, you know, many of the religious or spiritual or, you know, practices all talk about recognizing, you know, divinity in everyone. So that should be somewhat easy to do. Harmlessness, I want to say, kind of comes with this giving it, you know, this surrender. But desiring nothing for the separated self, that to me sounds like what does that look like? What does it look like? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you want to say you don't, you know, you want to say you don't want anything, but what does that actually look like? Is that staying in that, you know, I don't know. It's a tough one. But yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, and then at the same time, you know, there's nobody's perfect, dude. In the, you know,
Sure. Well,
no
that's why
aspirant has made it to that, you know.
that's why it's so hard to accomplish.
Yes,
Um,
you know, I would say it's relative here at this point too, because what point, at what initiation, or what level of this is somebody considered
Well, I
a
think
part of-
I think it might. I think a lot of it might come naturally, like you said, as the individual is moving up through these various
It's
levels
your
of
own recognition.
consciousness.
The recognition comes through yourself, right?
Yeah, because like with the learn to practice harmlessness, I mean, that is all encompassing, right? It's harmless, it's being harmless to yourself and everything. And in order to really, really do that, you have to be super cognizant of what each of your even smallest actions or statements or thoughts could have on yourself as well as others. So there's a lot of, I would think there's a lot of I mean, that really, to get there, you would have to be really exhibiting that you are always operating at that higher mental and really creeping into being more intuitive too.
Yeah, TK says nobody, in between these initiations, nobody's perfect.
Right.
So you'll know. I think, it's one of those things. You practice in harmlessness, not that you are 100%.
Yeah.
You're becoming harmless. I guess you're more and more.
Yeah.
You're still on the physical plane.
And then this desire nothing for the separated self. Yeah. Like, how deep does that go? I would think it goes deeper than anyone could even comprehend, right? Like, and then the sign of divinity in all, looking for signs of divinity in it all. Well, you and I kind of talked about that earlier, where, harmony through conflict and what's necessary for the good to come to be requires the bad. So there's divinity in all of that, right? But there's so many people that can't view it in that way yet. And to some effect, probably even you and me and others that are going through this like we are right now.
Yeah, well, plus we're in time and space, right? So
Right.
we're in time. It takes time. These things take time to unfold. It's a process. It is. But if you're working towards that and that's your intention, right? If our intention is moving in that way, it'll happen. It'll come as long as we're building that tension to go in that direction. And you will achieve, no doubt. There's no turning back anyway. Even if you could, you can't.
Right.
But you could delay. That's like, I have this in my head. I don't know how to express this in words, but I want to try to get it out real quick.
Do it.
But if you look at just imagine everybody, let's just say, and I'm not trying to imply anything. Let's just say you have a place, say Delaware. Everybody in Delaware is just going about their business today, right? And they don't ever get into any spiritual anything. And they do that for generations upon generation. If they're not making that shift over, how long would it take for them to get to get through these processes? I mean, you're looking at just an unbelievable amount of time for these things to work themselves out naturally. Dude, you got to have a kick in the butt. There has to be kicks in the butt along the way, man. Has to. 1,000,000%. Otherwise, you would just be going about this like snails,
Right.
uh,
Well, and I gather we do, there, we would get those kicks in the butt in whatever shape or form they're going to take.
yeah, the
I think-
individual certainly gets them, astrologically too. I mean, no doubt.
I think, I mean, that could be the conflict side of the fourth ray. The kick in the
Oh
butt.
yeah,
could be
no,
the
we got,
conflict,
yeah,
right.
we gotta get, you gotta get it, dude. We have
Right.
to.
So.
And this is the Four Noble Truths, man. People are just going about their business and getting rich and, doing their image and personality stuff and identification with the body and
Mhm.
all that. And then I still don't have the good word, the right words of what I'm trying to express there, but it's, you can see that, I want to say, it's a scene.
Yeah.
And then look at, not just Delaware, we look at the whole world. That's my point. The whole world is kind of just self-consumed or, whatever, selfish.
Well, and it says
But
right
once,
here,
once you get your butt kicked, dude, you come around pretty quick. The change is possible.
You do for sure. But there's tendency to find yourself getting pulled back sometimes, and that's why this is so hard to accomplish. But it's definitely there. You just need to pay attention to it.
Yeah, and that's the glamours and the illusion. And that's also at our level, the dweller on the threshold. And this is what we have to deal with. And we have to do that work of dissipating these things in our lives individually. We have to. One at a time, really, too. It has to be, it's a process.
Right.
One thing at a time, and it does take time.
All right.
And in doing that, you're doing work for the group too. Every person that achieves and dissipating these clavers is really helping everybody else along the way. Because now you can, once we get through a lot of that, we can see the absolute insanity in it, right? Like we talk about that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The astral plane stuff is crazy.
It is, and it can so easily keep a person held back. So easily.
All right, where are we at? 202.
We're at. I think we read.
We can finish this section.
Yeah, I was just going to say there seems to be a good natural break coming up on the next page. So let me just read a couple more paragraphs here.
No, wait, no, we're almost done with this section, bro.
Are we?
Yeah.
Oh shoot, we sure are. Look at that. Well, let's keep it rolling then.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Just be a long session today, but that's all good. So much good discussion here today. Behind this group of mystics, which includes thinkers in every department of human thought, let me reiterate the word thinkers, and of human knowledge stands the hierarchy of masters, and in between these two groups stand also a band of teachers, of whom I am one, so that's DK. These acts as intermediaries and as transmitters of energy. May I repeat and beg you to attend that this group, which is slowly forming, is gathered out of every imaginable group of thinking and intelligent men. As yet, and as this may surprise a few, there are not very many occultists, so-called, among them. This is due to the fact that the occultists are numerically few in relation to the masses of humanity, and also to their tendency to be sectarian, exclusive, and self-righteous. Selfless humanitarian workers are there. Political leaders and economists and scientific workers in the world's laboratories are also there. Churchmen and religious adherents from all the world religions are there, and the practical mystics and a few occultists. The true occultist is rare. The group is and will be kept entirely subjective. Its members are linked telepathically, or they recognize each other through the quality of the work that they are doing in the outer world and the inclusiveness of the note they sound. It is inspired from above by the souls of its members and the great ones, and is energized into activity by the need of humanity itself. It is composed of living conscious souls working through coordinated personalities. Its symbol is a golden triangle enclosing its symbol is a golden triangle enclosing an even-armed cross with one diamond at the apex of the triangle. The symbol is never reproduced in form at all. It shines above the heads of all who are in the group and cannot be seen by anyone, not even a clairvoyant, except a group member. And then, only if, for purposes of work, his recognition needs stimulation. The motto of the group is the glory of the one. More I may not tell you now, but this will give you some idea of the reality of the work that is going on. It may serve as an incentive to fresh effort on the part of all working to equip themselves for selfless service. We are to take up now a very brief consideration of two types of energy of a major kind, which are in themselves composed and blended of coordinated energies. The subject matter is therefore of so advanced a nature that it is useless for the aspirant to give much time to its study. Volumes would be necessitated likewise if all that could be said were written, and it will only be possible in this book to outline some broad generalizations and to indicate certain facts of interest. The main reason that it profits us not to study these energies too closely is because the planetary spirit or logos and the planetary entity are the two forms in active manifestation which respond most forcibly to the impact of these energies. The human being responds, and that only subconsciously, because in his form nature, he constitutes a part of the planetary expression. The planetary spirit is a being who, ages ago, passed through the state of consciousness, which we call the human state, and has left it far behind. He, using the personal pronoun simple for the sake of terminological clarity, so he has an origin which lies outside the solar system altogether. His life is focused in the planet. His consciousness lies in realms beyond the concept of the highest adept in our planetary hierarchy. The planetary entity is the sum total of the forms which constitute the form through which the planetary spirit is manifesting, and therefore is the synthesis of the planetary physical, astral, and mental elementals. For the purposes of our consideration, this entity is the sum total of all physical, mental, astral, and mental forms, which blended and fused constitute our planet. Each is the embodiment of energy, and these two major streams which produce the form and the consciousness aspects of our planetary existence make their impact on the human being. The life of the planetary spirit makes its impact via the soul, and the life of the planetary entity is registered through the medium of the personality mechanism. The duality of these energies is primarily astral-buddhic. And the bias of the life forces and the general trend of the impulses influencing humanity in this great cycle are the attractive energy of the intuitional nature of the planetary logos and the potent force of the astral or desire body. In other words, the astral elemental, which embodies the desire nature of the planetary logos, is exceedingly potent, particularly in this present cycle, but the strength of the spiritual and intuitional nature of the one in whom we live and move and have our being is steadily increasing. On the one hand, you have the devastating expression of the wild hunt for pleasure, of sex, and of the crime incident to the satisfying of desire. This characterizes our present civilization and is now at its heights. It may be said that this is even on the decline, little as you may sense it. At the same time, there is found the open door of initiation. Both these opportunities, if I might so term them, are found simultaneously present, but the strength of the one is weakening, and the trend towards the other is growing. Thus, the way out can be seen.
Hey, hold on, man. Let's talk about.
I wanted to pause there too. What's your thought?
What's your thought?
Well, I was just going to quickly comment. So just going back a little bit here. On the other hand, you have a devastating expression of the wild hunt for pleasure, of sex, and the crime incident to the satisfying of desire. So that's talking about feeding our desires as they are laid out in the astral plane. And these are the things we're supposed to be kind of naturally kind of dissolving away, not to say that, you know, some things won't happen, but it just mentions here that the characteristics of our present civilization is now at its height, but it may be said that it's even on decline, little as you may sense it. But this was back
because
in the
we're talking
30s.
about a very giant space of time, I assume, right?
Right. But this was back in the 30s when this was written and originally discussed. And I'm just wondering if there might be some regression going on in current day, because I'm not sure.
You know, that's interesting, because I think you're right in a sense.
I feel like more people are moving back to the pleasure seeking and the sex pleasing. It's like,
well, you get thrown back on yourself, right? The aspirant gets thrown back on himself. The disciple gets thrown back on himself. Humanity will get thrown back on itself. So with every step forward, you know, there's going to be a you know, he uses this particular word, where you go through it again.
right.
You have to re-engage the whole thing again, but it's sped up in a sense, right? But, and now I wanted to point out in that same note that the crime incident to the satisfying of desires, how deep does that go, sir? How deep, what is crime in this sense? You know, we've withheld so many loopholes from each other, so many internet, you know, so many ways around the system. We're withholding generally good things from people at this point. Knowledge, truth. And we're willing to do that for our own satisfying of desires, right?
Right.
Everybody seems like they're ripping each other off right now, bro, in this world.
Well, I think that's, I think what he's saying here is that is actually the crime incident, is the satisfying of the desire. Would you agree? Like the satisfying of those desires is the crime.
Certainly, we should definitely look at that from that perspective. Yeah. That's what. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it is a dang. It's because it's a dang shame.
You're right, and that brings me back to my thought. Like we're, from my perspective, even though I hear it says back in the 30s, 40s, it might just not have been so clear, but it might have been on the decline. Well, I feel like we're kind of catapulting ourselves and compounding this a little bit worse than it might have been, because you're right, with the age of technology that we're in now, there are so many people out there just ripping each other off. And that is just to satisfy their own desire for making money. Like, it's just preposterous.
Oh yeah. Oh, beyond, dude. And they'll do anything to do it, right? Like,
but this is all part of that harmony through conflict that you're talking before, right? This is kind of this is a test for us as humanity.
Yeah, it is.
Like okay, now we're going to throw in this technology factor so you can get the stuff even more easily than you could before. Let's see how you all actually work through that and how pure you make yourselves with that at your hand, because anybody with a computer can figure some way out to rip off their neighbor.
Oh yeah, it is a new age, right? When you
Yeah.
add the internet, and once you added the internet, this is a new age.
Mm-hmm. But with that too, there's a lot of good that can come out of that.
Oh, of course.
It can,
I mean, of course,
it
you
can
have access to just the most, all of the information, essentially, if you're willing to do to do the work and read. But this AI thing is, it's about to create. I don't even know. I don't even think I can speculate my thoughts on AI. We've talked about that a bit.
mm-hmm.
You can essentially go to school online, I would imagine, right now, from bachelor's degree through PhD,
Yeah.
and never actually write a single one of your own papers. And it will not come up as plagiarized. It would be completely unique. And it would be, done as good as any, Ivy League student who's ever written a dissertation.
Possibly. So I've kind of dabbled into that a bit, just played around with it. And I read a couple articles related to it too. So I've put it through a bit of the test, because I did test like Chat GPT, I think it was, to see what it can produce based on some basic criteria, or even in some cases, some detailed criteria. And I gotta say that if you don't know the subject material that you're asking it to convey for you, yes, the paper or the essay or the poem or whatever could look good to a person who doesn't really know the material behind it. But I did put it to the test, and I asked it to word for word explain rule 2 from a treatise on white magic, or actually it might have been rule 2 of Rays of Initiations. Word for word, I asked it to do it, because I ask it little things like, what is the general theme of a treatise on white magic? And it would give you something good if you didn't really know what you were reading. But I asked it, give me word for word, rule 2, Rays, and it was not even anywhere in the ballpark.
So
it
did
not give me the word to word. But it also didn't seem to convey what rule 2 in the book was really conveying either. There might have been little touch points here and there, but it wasn't hitting the general theme. So it's imperfect from that perspective. Now, these are some pretty intense books that might not be fully understood out there anyway. So maybe it could do word for word something that's more generally known a bit better. I don't know. I haven't tested that. And I forget where I was going with this. Oh, it's not a perfect technology. I don't know that it's something that we necessarily have to fear, and we shouldn't fear anything, but I don't know that it's something that would need to be of worry yet, because I don't think it's evolved to the point where, or at least from my perspective and the testing that I put it through, although the technology is probably already out there, it just hasn't been released to the public yet. But anyway, I put it to the test.
I mean, they also have that, deep fakes and all this stuff that they can make too. So
yeah. Now I did read an article though, talking about like how best to properly use it. So like we were saying, with this influx of technological advancements, there can be good or bad that come out of it. If it's rightly used, it could be a good thing. And the article I read was kind of neat, because it was talking about, like, instead of having it write your college paper, because it could give you bad information, and even disclaimers in there that the information provided isn't always accurate. It also does say that some things that are written could be interpreted as plagiarized. But like asking it to generate an idea for you to write about. So again, generate an idea, like I am studying this. Give me and I have to write a dissertation for what I'm studying. Give me some ideas of what I could write about for my dissertation. And then it would give you some general ballpark ideas that then you could take and go research yourself to then write your dissertation, and using it from that perspective.
Well, check this out though. You could take and have something written, put it through another program and have them rewrite it. See, you know,
Yeah,
it's very weird. It's a very strange thing.
yeah, it is.
You could say, please rewrite a treatise on white magic for a, 4th grade level or something. I saw.
Right.
And see what it pops out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually did a little bit of that. We won't get into it here, but you and I can connect at a later time, and I'll walk you through some of the things I did, because it does generate some common, because I said put it into layman's terms, and it tried to, but I'm not sure that it was hitting the mark of what's really being discussed in some of the sections that I asked it to discuss.
I heard a statement that said now that they've given it to the general public,
Mhm.
it makes it basically changes the game for the public, and like the whole public. It makes us more responsible, and there's some serious implications of them even like pushing this stuff out now.
Well, and you have to ask why. And my overarching kind of view of it as I was playing around with it, because sometimes you put things in there and it spits something out and you're like, man, that's kind of crazy that it does that. And it does it like that.
Yeah.
And you can anyway. But as I was playing around with it, it kind of popped in my head that, is this just being put out there to kind of dumb people down? Because people by nature can be lazy, and they will take the easiest approach from point A to point B.
Well, I'm just thinking, man, like if I punch in like a discussion from a message board or discussion board, and I say, hey, give me a 500-word response for this.
Mhm.
It's going to pop out something pretty legit. I can take it, make a couple of my own, quick, changes to it,
Right.
and add my flavor. And then now my homework is done in, 10 minutes. Yeah, dude.
Versus 10 days.
Bro,
Yeah.
This
So,
is crazy, man.
But the question I have there is, like, and I want to tie it back to these materials here, but where I was going was, in a sense, it's kind of pulling us back from being able to fine tune our own mental capacity that we're supposed to be doing, because we're relying on a machine. Now, for all we know, the machine could be the new conduit for the masters. Who the hell knows? I don't know. I doubt it. I don't know. But we're supposed to be working on our mental, right? Like if we're relying on a machine to give us that, how is that really doing that? I don't know.
Yeah, like you said, though, it can go both ways. It can go both ways, man.
Or maybe it's being given to us as a tool because we have become so lazy and stupid to help. I don't know. But anyway, it could probably be used for either good or bad. I'm sure it can, but How do we even get on that subject? By the
And
satisfying of
it's just that there
desire?
are a lot of implications in this whole thing.
Yeah. All right. Well, where was I? I'm sorry about that little tangent, but that was
No, that was my
interesting
fault.
discussion. Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
It was our fault.
Oh, because we were talking about crime incident to the satisfaction of desire,
Yeah.
satisfying desire. Yeah.
Well, I'll just read that. So this characterizes our present civilization is now at its height. And okay, we already read that. In the paragraph above, the dominant planetary urges present in evolution are summed up and man's reaction to them noted. Solar energies have also a dual effect. First, there is what we call the pranic effect, which is the result of the impact of solar force emanating from the physical sun. This produces definite results upon the objective forms, and these are termed physical or vital. These enter the human body via the spleen and also via a center found between the shoulder blades. The center is between the throat center and the heart center in the spinal column, but nearer the heart than the throat. Secondly, there are energies which emanate from what is esoterically called the heart of the sun. These sweep through one or other of the planets in 7 great streams and power into the soul of man and produce that sensitivity which we call awareness. These 7 types of energy produce the 7 types of souls or rays, and in this thought you find the secret of soul unity. During manifestation, owing to the 7 types of energy impacts playing upon the matter of space, one finds the 7 types of soul, the 7 fields of expression, and the 7 grays of consciousness and of ray characteristics. These differentiations, as you well know, are like the coloring that the prism takes when subjected to the rays of the sun, or to the tracery of pattern found in reflection upon a limpid pool. And that closes out the group of New World.
That is, this is all very interesting stuff, man. But that the 7 rays, the study of the 7, that is the most intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't get any more intriguing than the study of the 7 rays. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be great. I'm looking forward to where this goes.
As am I. All right. So we want to call it a wrap there because that closes out that section of Rule 10.
Yeah, sounds good.
So next week we'll finally move into the last section of Rule 10, astrology and the energies. Not sure if we'll get through it next week, but we'll see.
Oh, it looks like we will.
Is it not very long? I haven't even looked. I haven't read ahead yet.
It does not look that long. It's actually not that long at all.
Maybe we'll get through Rule 10 next week.
Yeah, it'll be a short one.
We'll see how much discussion there comes with that next section, though, because you and I might have a lot to talk about there. So,
I'd really like to have Carla on for that.
That would be great. That would be great.
I don't know if it pertains to her, which
it might not, but maybe it'll generate some discussion points for us to then invite her on a later session where we can get those questions answered and talk a little bit more about whatever we want to talk about around astrology. So I'm trying to look for the page in the blue book so I can reference that here too. It looks like it is page, man, we read a lot today.
Yeah.
Where the heck is it? Oh, all right. So yes. So we're on page 204 in the PDF, about halfway through, where we'll pick up next week for astrology and the energies, which starts right at the top of page 434 in the blue book.
All right, buddy.
So with that, we'll call it a wrap and see everybody next week.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.